Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, Casey. How are you?
I am all right. I am enjoying afternoon coffee, so all is well.
Oh, anything could happen. Anything could happen now. Oh my God, she's on fire. Oh,
but I know you've used almost all of your words for the day, so we want to save them for our guest, right?
Wow. She went there. Good God. Can we please just dilute that coffee a little bit more?
What are you going to dilute it with? Let's talk.
I think he needs a downer right now.
I hope this is an afternoon amp up for anyone listening to it, and maybe not a sitting in traffic wishing you had a cup of coffee moment. Well, or pull over. There's probably a Starbucks nearby.
Yeah. The problem is if you have a coffee when you're in traffic, that just leads to disasters. Then you're just like, it's awful. You're just like, oh, no, now I need to go to the restaurant. Oh, anyway, let's get our guest on.
Let's definitely not bring someone on with potty talk.
Yeah. We
don't want to do that. Although maybe he's had his share of adventures. I say that because today's guest, I'm excited. He has fulfilled a dream of mine. So I want to hear how he did it. He's figured out how to get paid to travel. And I really aspire to that. He's a travel advisor. And he can tell us more what that means and in what big capacity that is, because he's better than a computer. It's Asan Askin. Hi, Asan.
Hello, Casey. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We can tell he's distant. He's traveling right now, is Sean.
Too bad I'm only 5 blocks from Casey's house right now.
Yeah. Our advice is travel more, Sean. Closer to the computer. That's with you. Yeah.
This is what happens when you use AirPods, people. Sorry, Apple.
Right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you just need a new set of AirPods. So we'll just see if we can get Apple to send us AirPods, right? You never know.
Yeah, they could sponsor me, right? Something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, if you're listening, Apple, because we know you listen to everything.
On Apple Podcast, they might monitor. You don't know.
Yeah, everybody here wants. I'd like a new iPhone as well, and possibly a new laptop. Just saying, that could really help.
Sure. You know what? If you want to get me something for the holidays, Dave, I would take a new phone. It's probably great.
Yeah. And a free Apple subscription on TV as well. Just in case you're listening.
When we're traveling. So we can stay in touch. Yeah. Okay, so Asan, what is the dream for you? I've told you what my dream version of your dream is, but what is yours?
Well, I mean, you encapsulated it pretty well. You know me from my prior life as an attorney at one of the studios where I was basically a caged bird. It was basically impossible to go travel anywhere for more than maybe a few days at a time. And I think that's what really drove me to pursue this career and change from, the legal side of things into travel. And I had seen a couple of my friends make a similar transition, not necessarily from the legal profession, but from other professions, and becoming independent contractors and becoming travel advisors, which it's the new thing now, is being a travel advisor versus being a travel agent, because we're not talking about Darlene with, the cigarette hanging from her mouth, clicking away or writing tickets for you back in the 60s. Travel advisors are a bit more nuanced. There's a bit bigger component where you're really educating yourself. And becoming a travel psychologist for your clients, like trying to match them with properties and with locations that they're going to, with the experiences that they want to have. So I kind of dove in full on. It's been about a decade now that I've been in the industry. I survived COVID in the industry when we were making zero money because nobody was traveling, obviously. But through all that heartache, I still feel like I'm living the dream. Sometimes it's a nightmare when you're dealing with all kinds of emergency situations. And I'll get into that a little bit more specific to my kind of travel that I manage. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a big dream of yours, I know, to travel this much. But I have gotten to be on 5 continents so far in the last. I accomplished that. I have Antarctica to go. And I just returned from India. So, like bucket list checklists are being made, and taken care of. And it's wonderful. Like there's more trips coming up towards the end of the year. Like my mom always asks me, like, where are you today? What's going on? Like, what time zone are you in? But I also now have the responsibility of running the West Coast division of our agency with about 45 people, 45 agents. So that responsibility requires me to be back in LA a lot more. And our company is growing a little bit into Mexico City and London. And so there's going to be a lot more travel to those places as well.
So many questions. Okay. First of all, you talked about yourself being like a travel psychologist, which I love the idea of. And I know already that you're good at that because you helped me plan a trip that I was like getting over a breakup and stressed out from work. And I called you like that. I'm like, I want to go somewhere relaxing, but like, I don't want to be the only single person, but I don't want it to be a meat market. Like, and I hadn't thought of it as travel psychologist, but that is exactly what it was. It was like, where can you send me that will solve my problems for 5 minutes? That will be my right swipe for the perfect trip. How does one get good at that? And does your law degree help serve you at all? Or was that just the impetus to get you the fuck out of being in an office all the time?
It's interesting you mentioned the law degree because I've seen a lot of like very successful advisors at various agencies who have a legal background. I think the AAA personality it requires to be a lawyer, like that over organization and tediousness, kind of comes in handy when you're planning trips for people because you're looking at every single detail. You're trying to figure out how to transfer people and make sure that they have enough time in between flights and how do we get them from the airport to the resort? Is it included in the price or is it going to be an amenity that they're paying for? So there's a lot of these little details that go into it. And I think especially when you're serving like a high-end market, high-end consumer, that comes in really handy because you know how to do checklists and you can do it in your head. I actually still do it on paper because I'm a little old school. I don't want to leave anything to chance sometimes. And one of the bigger things that I'm responsible for is helping our agents who do a lot of the music tours and productions. So there's an increased element of stress to that. And I think that's when the law degree really comes in handy, or at least the legal training comes in handy.
How so?
Reading the contracts, understanding like group contracts and what they mean, and, like creating ways to make them more flexible, especially when you're dealing with some of these bigger hotel chains. They have these really strenuous agreements that they try to impose on the clients. And as we all know from COVID, when cancellations happen, like, if there's a concert tour happening, those producers can't be paying for 3-4 months of hotels that nobody's going to be using. And that was one of my jobs, like during the beginning of the pandemic, was to wiggle out of those contracts.
That legalese must have had to come in handy then, huh?
It came in very handy when I was doing entertainment hands-on. So now I'm in a little bit more hands-off position where I'm advising advisors. They come to me when they have those questions, and the legalese really does still come in handy on that front. But I forgot the first part of your question because we dove into the legalese. So
just it was the travel psychology part, like what helps you do that. And also, as you bring up the COVID thing, like, did you have to like make people feel comfortable about travel again, aside from like getting all the money back from the group travel and stuff, like how did that change things?
Well, a lot of advisors got very financially impacted by COVID because of the cancellations. A lot of advisors live off of commissions that they make and service fees that they make for the trips that they plan. So when the trip doesn't go to conclusion, and the hotels are collecting the money, and then the clients are asking for the refunds for the cancellations, you end up all of a sudden with commission recalls. So I know some friends who were like really deep in like $20,000, $30,000 of commission, and because that was their revenue, that was their money, their salary that they were going to live off of for the next however many months, and that being recalled really put a damper on everyone's mood. So I think we were much more than the clients. I think we were much more trying to make sure that everyone else in the industry was okay. There was a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of virtual games and happy hours, and just like everybody else. But I think there was also this stress of, when you start working in travel, you want to travel, and to not be able to travel and feel caged up again was really a big stress for people.
So when you're advising, is that why you're traveling so much? Because you have to go ahead and literally go, right, they can go here, they can go there. Don't go to this hotel here. Is that your job?
Part of my job is that's actually one of the perks of the job for me. I really love doing that. Sometimes a new hotel will open up, or they'll refresh the hotel or renovate it or relaunch it under a new brand name. And they'll invite a bunch of us to come experience the property. I've been very lucky to have been invited on a few trips like that, where I was at properties testing them out before they were open. So that becomes a way of seeing, oh, can I send this client here? Or, oh, this client would not like this place at all. You kind of have a running list in your head, like if you're a good advisor, sorry.
Good. If you mess it up, that means we can too.
No, you're going to have to explain the difference.
I think that the difference between an agent is someone who's just booking the travel. An advisor is someone who's going more in depth with the psychology and with the knowledge of the clients, and understanding what they require. I think there's a bit more of a, like, what we call a white glove touch in the industry. Like, it's a bit more nuanced. It's like what Casey was talking about when I set up that trip for her. We kind of talked it out, and we eliminated certain destinations. So it wasn't just like, go online, I'm going to Mexico, I'm going to Puerto Vallarta, like, find me a ticket, find me a hotel, get me a package. It was much more, that's what an agent would do. So like, if you go online, that's called an online travel agency, OTA, for a reason. And then advisors are really people, we're there to like talk to you and assess what you're thinking about. And like you said, going to these properties and assessing them as well, and seeing if you're a match. It's almost like a dating service, like travel psychology, travel dating. Yeah.
I love that. What kind of things are they having you test out at these new places? Because I would say that you curate experiences.
Correct. So, if you're going as a guest of a tourism board, you're really going to get like the full gamut of the experience. Mm-hmm. So say, for example, you're going to Costa Rica. They want to highlight certain properties. They want to highlight certain experiences, whether it's zip lining or spa services. That's the perk of the job, right? You're going on these trips. You're working 16 hours a day. You're going from hotel to hotel to hotel, and seeing the different types of rooms, seeing the different types of social spaces that exist. You're testing out the food. You get really fat, then you go on a detox program somewhere and lose all that fat.
But you know where to go, right? Because you've
exactly.
Do you plan trips for yourself like you plan for other people?
I'm the worst at planning for myself.
How can that be? Because it feels like work then?
I think I pay way more attention to my clients' trips than I do to my own. I rarely do my trips way ahead of time, ticketing and all that stuff. So I think I end up spending way more money on my own trips because I don't plan it as well as I plan my clients.
So could you tell us about what a typical client is? You've already mentioned the music industry. Who are the people that you are dealing with mainly?
So there in music touring, for example, we have the A party, the B party, the C party, and the A party is the artist. Oh. The B party is the band and the dancers and, the backup people. And C party is the crew. Now, there's some people who also call it the D party, the drivers that, drive the whole tour from one destination to another. But that's basically the gist of it. So you may end up doing just the A party. You may end up doing all three. Mm-hmm. Which that's a rarity because most tour managers like to split it up between different agencies so that you're getting the same attention for each different group so that one doesn't get neglected by having all three in the same agency. But if for smaller bands, I think it ends up being A, B, and C in the same agency and with the same group. Then we do production travel.
Can I just find out, are you going to tell us that the artist probably gets the Four Seasons? Does someone on the crew get the Motel 6? Or
I don't I have put people at a Motel 6 before because that was the only thing that was available in that area.
I knew it.
What's the biggest group that you've booked? Then I know you're going to talk about production, but like how many people are you juggling?
I think you know about this one. I can't tell you who the artist is, but it was you came with me to the concert.
Yeah, and it was another great fucking perk. Thanks for letting me take advantage of it.
We went backstage at one of the concerts in Orange County. So that was a crew of 90. So I was moving 90 people from between, I think, city to city for 9 months. Because that tour also got delayed a little bit and then some tour dates got moved and it got extended. I think it was like 55 cities around the North America. And that was a pretty intense tour. It's the biggest I've ever dealt with.
Wow. And you said you also do like film and TV production crews, cast and crew?
We do some reality shows based here in LA. So those are pre-contracted with certain hotels in the area. We fly in some of the guests. And there's some people who do film productions. We have some folks in our New York office who do advertising in commercial shoots. And we now have a Mexico City office where we're going to be handling some Mexican artists as well. So it's really exciting to be in a company that's growing right now.
So Sean, if you say the band is playing like Chicago, how does that work? Do you go to Chicago ahead of time and go, right, this is going to be great for the artist. This is going to be luckily there's a Motel 6 for the drivers. I'm sorry, I'm being facetious.
Why are you so mad at drivers?
It's not me. It's not me who's putting them there, Casey. I'm asking Sean whether
Teamsters are awesome.
My question is really: are you going ahead of time and make sure that that it's all fixed up for them? Or
not necessarily when you get the city roster, because you already know where you might put them in those cities because you've already put other people into those hotels in those cities. So we have relationships with the entertainment salespeople at certain hotels, and we like to go back to them because they know how to take care of our people really well. Because sometimes when you're just, in the middle of nowhere and there's only 3 hotels and it's, I don't want to say names of hotels and make them sound bad, but a lot of times, like when somebody's going to do a concert, in the middle of a field somewhere, and there's only 3 hotels around, you go and book the 90 rooms and there is guaranteed there will be some problems with that, especially because they're not used to handling that kind of entertainment group. So there are times we go and pre-scout, but most of the time we also have trade shows where we go and meet with those salespeople. They also move around from hotel to hotel. But we all have our favorite salespeople. We know how they all have their favorite agents and advisors. So they take care of us. We take care of them, basically.
So, I mean, have you ever done anything like Glastonbury? Because you said like a band playing in a field. Now, that's got to be the ultimate, where there's 100,000 people at Glastonbury. And then you've got, I don't know, Paul McCartney headlining. And Duran Duran. I don't know. I'm just picking up.
But just the number of bands that also would need a place to
Right.
stay at the same time for something like that.
Yeah.
If you're planning last minute, you're like, okay, so you're staying 3 hours away, but we've got a helicopter to bring you into the show. It's very dramatic. People will think it's on purpose.
Yeah, this is what I want to know. Is like, how does that work? Because I've always wondered, how does that work? That you've got all these bands. They're not staying in tents, are they?
No, they're absolutely not staying in tents. I think for music festivals like that, even here for Coachella and Stagecoach, they may be staying in Palm Springs, in private villas and private residences. They're not staying at hotels. They're not staying at the tents. And yes, they are being flown in or driven in private transfers. But it's a big logistical nightmare sometimes to try to get as many bands as Glastonbury and Coachella may require. But it's also like the fun part of it, because some of us are also, masochists, I think, in the industry. We like to take on the challenge and we want to make it work. And there's a stress factor to it, and some people thrive on that stress. So I think those are the people that are really successful on the entertainment side of the business. I personally like to divvy my time up between leisure and entertainment, because I actually personally enjoy doing the travel psychology part that we were talking about for personalized trips. Some of my favorite trips are sending people on like game drives in Africa, especially in South Africa, for people who haven't been before, or Namibia. Because I'm still like trying to go to Namibia. But I've really enjoyed my time in Southern Africa, in the Botswana and Zimbabwe and Zambia. And I love sending people there, because I think when you're in that Jeep on a game drive, like a safari, and you're seeing the animals and you're in their habitat, it kind of changes like your outlook on life. And I like impacting people like that, or sending them on adventure travel where they're going to, explore the fjords in Norway. And it's pretty incredible seeing those things in person, because you see them on Instagram with like influencers hanging off of cliffs, and it's like they're really not hanging off of that cliff.
I would agree. I was lucky enough to go to Tanzania, and seeing the animals in their natural habitat, it's like, oh my God, am I back in prehistoric times? This is amazing. To get to see as many of those things as you get to see is pretty incredible. Is Africa, is that where you would recommend to anyone? Like, if you make one trip happen in a lifetime, try and go there, or where would it be?
I think it depends on the person. Some people don't want to go to that heat or that environment. So I think it depends on what they enjoy. Like, I like rugged landscapes. So for me, like a bucket list trip is going to like Svalbard in the north, like Arctic Circle, north of Norway, where you can go see the polar bears. And it's like you're in an expedition ship with like maybe 20 cabins, and you're in like a ship with like 50 people, and you're getting really up close and personal with these polar bears. That's one of my bucket list trips. I really want to go to Antarctica. I'm starting to see a theme here with ice.
It's the third time you've mentioned Antarctica. Yeah.
I have several cousins who have been able to see like the penguins and the polar bears and the northern light. They all went like last year. Instagram was like, I just couldn't look because I was jealous of where everyone was going, getting to do that. But like, so if someone called you for a leisure travel for something like that, but they didn't know that's where they wanted to go. Like what kind of a thing, if they're just like, hey, I like cold, where should I go? Like what kind of a thing would lead you to that?
Like, what do you want to see? What do you want to do? I think Antarctica is not top of list for most people, so that's definitely something for a much more adventurous traveler. I think like a safari in South Africa is much more palatable for someone who's doing adventure travel for the first time. Or maybe they go to Costa Rica and see the rainforest, and that's their introduction to adventure travel. It just depends on like the activity level and each individual client. You can't just, there's no way to box it and categorize it and say, okay, this person's going here, this person's going here. That's why I call it travel psychology. You really are matching people up. Like it's a matchmaker kind of situation.
I like how can me and Dave go on some of this free travel and talk about it comedically, but promote it?
I mean, maybe we can work something out.
I'm all about finding how to get free travel.
I don't know. We can find a sponsorship thing for you, and maybe you can go promote that hotel and do your podcast from there next time.
Dave, you're willing to do it remote, right?
I'm prepared to do a podcast from South Africa if that's what you're.
All right,
and we've had guests in South Africa as well. We could meet up with them in person. Could all work. One of them's very famous, so we could go meet him in South Africa. Yeah,
let's see what we can do. Let me talk to some people.
Excellent.
So, how would you say that, like, your fantasy or your expectation of what being a travel advisor would be meets with the reality of it?
I mean, to be quite frank, I think when people see my Instagram, they think that like all I do is gallivant around.
It does look that way.
True. But but that said, when Instagram is off, I may be working till 3 a.m, catching up on local LA time. It's not easy. I think a lot of people think it's just really easy that we just get paid to. We do get paid to travel, but that's the perk of it. The actual job is still a lot of work, and it's a lot of work and making a lot of connections and following up with people, because sometimes you can't just send off an email and rely that 90 people are going to be taken care of when they arrive at a hotel. There's a lot of logistics that go behind that. And even if it's not 90 people, it could be a family of 5. I want to make sure that they're well taken care of. And then I want to make sure that my advisors are well taken care of once their clients' trips are over, because then we follow up with the hotels and request the commission payments if it was, booked under a commissionable situation, so that the agents are getting paid, because most of these agents, they survive. Advisors and agents survive on commission payments.
So what kind of hours are you really working?
It's definitely not a 9-to-5 job. There have definitely been weekends where I've worked the whole weekend. I've woken up at 3 a.m. to help someone with a situation where they've been stuck with a canceled flight, trying to get, 5 A-listers to get moved to another flight by calling our rep at an airline. So it's all about the relationships too. Because if you don't have those relationships, and if you don't have those people's cell phone numbers, it's really hard to get a hold of them at 3 a.m.
How does that work when you've got 5 A-listers suddenly going, oh no, we're supposed to be in Hong Kong and they've sent us to Tokyo instead?
If somebody made that kind of mistake, they're definitely getting fired the next day. But
might be the pilot.
Well, and that has happened before. Like a diversion happens, and then you have to quickly think on your feet and see if you can grab the first flight out. Like, say it was supposed to land in Hong Kong and it ends up in Tokyo. You figure out why that flight didn't end up in Hong Kong. Is it because the territory is closed, or is it because the airline had some issue with landing there? Then you research it, you figure it out, and you try to get them there on a private plane if necessary. But, at that point, you're just sort of like creating plan A, plan B, plan C, all the way to plan Z, and trying to implement one or the other, because the ultimate goal is to get them where they need to be, especially
if you have to get them on
concert.
A private jet, would that, who eats that cost? If the mistake is, and it's probably no one's fault, there was some inclement weather, something was happening, they landed in Tokyo, and you go, right, I know, we've got to get you there for the concert in Hong Kong. I don't know why it's in Hong Kong, but it is. We're going to get you in a private jet. Don't worry about it.
In that situation, it's probably going to be someone from production that's going to cover the cost of that, because they're the ones who are going to lose out most if those artists don't show up for the concert. It really depends, though. I mean, it's circumstantial. It's not overall. I think if it's a private client, most of them would end up waiting to see if the airline will cover something, or if they'll rebook them. But we do have clients who, for them, a $30,000 ticket is just the drop in the bucket. So,
wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, I see how your legal background helps. It's almost like you have to have a legal strategy, right? If you're like, okay, that didn't win the case, but we could try this or this or this or this. So definitely, I know a lot of people go to law school and decide not to pursue it, but you seem like you're putting some of those skills to use.
No, I always say that, like, going to law school was one of the best decisions of my life. Being a lawyer, maybe not so much. So
yeah,
I'm really glad that I got the skills that I got from law school, organization and everything else. But not the legal profession so much for me.
Is there anything else that you would do or would have done?
Aside from travel?
Yeah.
I mean, I moved to LA to be a writer, and, as you know, it didn't quite work out for me. But the door is never...
You were smart to get out. It's not good right now.
No, and that's the thing, is like, you have to, it's all luck too. In the entertainment industry, you just kind of figure out your way, and you try it out for a little bit. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, you make a decision of whether you keep pursuing it or you can pivot to something else. I mean, the door is not closed on writing for me. I still write on a regular basis. It's just not, scripts and books. It's emails and sometimes really nasty ones.
But imagine. So, what is this a dream job for you? Would you call it?
Absolutely. This is what I wanted to do this. And I wanted to do this because I had like one of those epiphany moments where I was working at the studio. I was on my way to work one day, and I got in a really bad accident, like on the freeway. Somebody rear-ended me and then ran off. But like my car got totaled. Somehow I got pulled out without a scratch. And that was one of those moments where I was like, you know what? Life is way too short. Like, what am I doing working at a job that I'm not happy at? Where I'm just stuck here not being able to see the world. I get 2 weeks of vacation a year. That's not enough to see the world. So I was lucky enough to have a friend who had done a similar thing and done the transition to travel. So and he was actually, I was booking my travel through him at the time. So I went to him and I was like, how do I do what you do? So he put me in touch with some amazing people. I remember my first interview. It was supposed to be like a half-hour interview to temp for somebody. And he ended up becoming a really good friend and became a mentor. He told me, he's like, I can't hire you. You'll leave me in 4 months. You're ready to do this on your own. So he introduced me to some other people as well. And that led to my first job at my first agency.
Wow. So how important do you think having a mentor is to what you do?
I don't think it's necessary, but I think it helps. And I try to mentor people now who are coming into the industry. I think it's important, but not mandatory.
Since it's a relationship business, is it a popular? Are you finding a lot of people coming to it now? Is it a popular go-to?
Yes, but I'm also finding that a lot of people are just coming into it with dreams of gallivanting and not realizing how much work it takes and how much information that you need to retain and how hard the job can be. So I think there's a generational situation there as well. I think a lot of the newer agents, there's some really, really good new agents from this new generation coming in. But for the most part, I think there's a generational gap in terms of folks who've been, on social media and try to be influencers in everything that they do. So there's a bit of a frustrating element of that, seeing how difficult the work can be, and then I've seen a lot of people crash and burn really quickly in the industry.
I just want to get back to what's the dream element of this job for you? What is it that you go, this is what I love? What's your favorite part of this?
Let's put it this way. I think a lot of people call it manifesting, but for me, it was just I wanted to go to South Africa within a year and a half. I mean, I've wanted to go to South Africa for 10 years before, but as soon as I got into the business, I booked a trip. I met somebody who worked for South African tourism. They invited me on a trip, and I had my first South African trip on my belt. And now I've been 3 times. I just went again in May this year. And I wanted to go to Australia. I made that happen. It's incredible. Like, I just came back from India last week, from a retreat in the Himalayas.
Oh, wow.
So it's getting to see the world.
It's getting to see the world. It's getting to see the places that you want to see. I think some agents focus just on Europe. Some agents just focus on a certain geographic area. I like to see everything that I can. But, I also have countries that I'm not really interested in. They're not top of the list for me, but I'm not going to say no if someone invites me.
So when you go out to this retreat in India, is that for fun, or is that, no, I better check this out because I'm going to use this later on and then I have some fun while I'm there?
Casey's going to ask me all about this.
Casey is going to ask me all about this. That's exactly why I went. No, that trip was also one of those properties that I had become familiar with pretty early on in my career. I had met the owner of the hotel that we went to. It's one of the hotels that's pretty well established for 3 decades. And it's a Ayurvedic detox center, and it's also a spa resort kind of thing. So you kind of go to disconnect from the world for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The perfect plan is to go for 3 weeks. And you don't use your phone a lot. You stay off of
a lot,
your
but
computer.
You still use it.
No, I mean, you have to, because you still need your phone to keep track of your schedule, unless you want to print it out and carry it with you, and that's fine. I don't use a watch anymore because I just rely on my phone for the time. Mm-hmm. So it was there with me, but I was very mindful of I turned off all my notifications on my email. Because I took the time off. I actually took vacation time because I was like, I need to do this the right way. I cannot be here and be distracted from the task at hand, which was to learn how to meditate, how to do yoga properly, how to get away from it all so that I can recharge myself. And I'm so grateful I went because it's made a difference.
I am going to ask you all about this trip. This sounds amazing.
I'm going to give you all the information about it.
But you are working technically when you're doing that, or is just having the experience and retaining it to share with people enough as of you working?
The work never stops. Let's put it that way. Whether you're actively working on a trip where I'm not taking time off and I'm on the clock, and I'm still booking travel if someone needs something. Or in this case, I took the time off to really experience it properly, but I'm already talking to people about sending them there. So the work is still continuing. So, they did their sales pitch to me by giving me the experience. So now I'm doing the sales pitch by retelling the story of the experience.
It's funny. It is like being a writer too, though, right, Dave? Like everything we do is fodder for something else. And even if you think you're not working, like you're on some project at some point in the future, or somebody asks you if you have an idea, like whatever, and you're like, no, wait a minute. I did go to this ashram in India, and that makes me think of, it's
exactly. And some of my friends continued from where we went to another property nearby. So I was getting updates from them about the differences between the two properties, for example. So if someone asks me, where do you think I should go? I can direct people to one or the other, depending on the experience they want to have.
So how do you like re-enter real life after that? Like if you are traveling so much, but still working all the time and having to be available, do you have like hacks for maintaining some sort of routine or getting over jet lag or any of that?
Hot baths are like Epsom salt baths are really, really important. I've learned. And the rest of it is completely, you're shit out of luck. Excuse my language. It's just jet lag all the time.
That's your new baseline.
Yeah, exactly. Your SOL.
There's not jet lag is a very hard one, isn't it? I mean, my father-in-law was always. I felt like someone said he must have his own time zone because he was always traveling the world doing these. He was in the music industry.
David, that's you're so right. I feel like I'm in my own time zone all the time when I'm traveling. You're really right, and it's hard, like because your phone adjusts, but then your calendar doesn't necessarily adjust. Right. Like my calendar on my computer doesn't adjust to the local time, but the calendar on my phone adjusts to the local time. So sometimes you have a really hard time figuring out where you are, who you are. You wake up in the middle of the night or the middle of the day sometimes, and you kind of have to just take a moment to be like, okay, where am I today? Right. I'm in London.
What's your favorite city right now?
For me, always and forever, London.
Good choice.
Yes.
He's just saying that to impress you, Dave.
Yeah, totally to suck up to you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Well done. I think it is the best city in the world right now. I do. I genuinely do think it is right now.
I also am a huge fan of Cape Town. I think it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Even with all the complications that the country undergoes, it's still one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life.
Would you ever live there? Would you ever live somewhere else?
I want to live everywhere that I go. So
keep traveling. You're a citizen of the world. How long is it for you, like between trips, before you're like, I got to go away again? Or are you just traveling so much that you never even get that itch?
That's a tough one. I think if I'm not traveling for more than a month, I probably will get the itch. But I also was hoping that I would have a month between this last trip and the next few that are coming up. And then I found out that I'm leaving on a trip to New York in 10 days. So,
What's the most surprising?
That one was a bit of a okay, I have to go to New York. Sorry, David.
What's the most surprising place you've been to where you thought, I was not expecting that?
I got to think about, Iceland.
Right. Okay.
Iceland is so beautiful, right?
Iceland, Norway, like the Nordic countries. I knew it was going to be mesmerizing. I wasn't quite prepared for how mesmerizing they were.
Right.
What's the quickest turnaround you've had of someone, like if someone called you right now and they're like, hey, I need you to do a fjord thing tomorrow afternoon. Where, like, do you have like a little go bag ready to go that you can like pack like a Jedi master real quick?
Oh, you mean for me to go personally?
Yeah.
I don't have any.
Or someone booking it. Do people do that? They call you and they're like, I've got to get away this weekend. I just need this really simple 4-city, 5-day, high-end, 12-person trip.
It has happened. I've actually had a client call me on the way to the airport.
Without even knowing where they were going yet?
No, they knew where they were going. They didn't have anything else worked out. So they were basically like, we're on our way to Hawaii. Figure it out for us.
Wow. Amazing.
So I had to figure it out while they were flying 5 hours. I got them the hotels, I got them the transfers, and they had a great time at 2 different properties. And
that is trust.
But not most people don't have that kind of trust in you. But I do have clients who've been with me from day one, and I think they have the kind of trust in me because we've done so many trips together that I understand them. I know what they're looking for the most part. I may be off every now and again, but that's also a learning experience. And then you kind of chalk that up and say, okay, never send them to a property like that again. But generally speaking, yeah, if you build that kind of trust with your travel advisor, it's like they can call you up like that on their way to LAX. Hey, I'm getting on a flight at 7 a.m. Get me hotel rooms and all that stuff sorted out.
All right, we've come to the end of this podcast, so we're going to have to go to the regular questions that we ask everybody here.
Why so fast?
We've time traveled. Okay, so Sean, if you won the lottery, it's going to be quite interesting. If you won the lottery, the big one, what would you do?
Mm-hmm. Traveled the world.
But would you like come home in between, or would you just like keep going all around and just be like a nomad?
I think I would be a nomad for sure.
Interesting. Would you own properties or would you just go around?
I might. Like, we were talking about Cape Town. Like if it's like a lottery situation like that, I may have little pads to stop by in, maybe like one on each continent. I don't know. And use those as like my bases. But I would travel all the time. I would not stop traveling, and I would take my friends on trips, and I would take my family on trips. I love taking my parents on trips because it's my way of thanking them for giving me a good life. So, yeah.
And then you get to write about all the things you're doing, and then you get to live all of your dreams.
That would be the ultimate dream, actually.
Okay. I mean, I feel like I have to ask the question I always ask, but it feels less apropos for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is your go-to snack? Let me ask a two-parter. What's your go-to snack while you're traveling? And is there like a food that you taste in every country to see how they do it? Like my grandpa used to try Chinese food in every country he went to just to see how they did it differently. Do you have anything like that?
That's really interesting. My thing is eggs, like how certain type, like poached eggs, how they're prepared in each place that I go. I'm like obsessed with poached eggs.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I'm a mystery for you, Casey. But I think snack wise, I'm a savory person. So I like to carry like protein bars with me. But if somebody puts like a bag of potato chips in front of me, oh, beware. Sorry, crisps for you, David.
Thank you. I was just trying to work out what you were talking about. Yeah, appreciate that. Salt and vinegar crisps. So
those are so good, by the way.
They are so good.
Yeah. What's your favorite animal and why?
From the first time I saw one, the cheetah, because they're really rare to get that close up to, and I was pretty close to one. And it was a really exhilarating experience. And she also had like a few cubs behind her. So we got to see like the mom with 3 cubs. And it was like one of those moments where like I actually had tears in my eyes. Like, I can't believe I'm seeing this in person.
Amazing. You must have really amazing travel photos too.
And I steal a lot from the people that I travel with. So
you share. You're sharing.
I do photo credit though. So not like some other people.
It's all part of the experience. Okay, Asan, if we really knew you, what would we know about you?
Oh man, that's a tough question. If you really knew me, what would you know about me? If you knew me, you would know that I'm not actually an extrovert. I look like one, I dress like one, and I pretend to be one. And then I need about 3 days after a week of being extroverted to recoup.
Should be a comedian. Excellent.
He said he wanted to be a writer. He fits that profile very well. This has been so fun. I wish we could talk more. We've reached our capacity of our time here. I look forward to booking more travel with you. If people want to contact you to book some fancy travel, can they find you somewhere? Are you taking on new clients? Is that a thing?
They can definitely get in touch with me. And if I'm not able to help them, then I have a slew of amazing travel advisors that I can get them in contact with. And I can send you a contact email for people or a phone number that people can get in touch with me on.
Okay. So you can message us if you want to experience true travel advisory.
Thank you, Sean. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too, David. And
next time I travel,
I'll see you. Yes, please.
I'll have to say, where do I go in London? Tell me.
What if he knows better places than you?
Probably does, yeah. I mean, I've not lived there for 20 years, but last time I was there, I was going, God, this is an amazing city.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll do a remote one soon too, and then we'll do one all over the world.
We should definitely work on that for you guys.
Yeah, okay. I'm really happy to go to South Africa and see if it's as good as you say.
Have passport, we'll travel. I won't even be that picky.
Yeah, I just need convincing, Yeah.
All right. I'll take care of you.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Dave.
Have a good
Thanks,
weekend.
everybody, for listening. Bye. Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.